everybody, and happy Friday. Thanks for tuning in to radiofreerhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here with Laura Selicaro, one of my favorite bubbly people ever. Hello, Laura. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Norm.
Come on, I told you I wanted the first words.
F you, Norm. I'm not saying it.
Why not? Laura said she's nervous. I said, well, some first words say, fuck you, Norm, which I thought would sort of get rid of the nerves. Well, thanks so much for coming in. I know you through Culture Connect, which is an organization you've worked with for 4 years. Mm-hmm. 4 years. And can you tell people what you do there? Because I know, and it's amazing.
So I'm a program coordinator for a program called Community Connect, which is one of the many programs that Culture Connect does. I'm super proud of it. I love working there and with Norm and with all the awesome board members. And we work with kids that don't speak English at home, they speak English, but they're sometimes they're even born in the country, but their families are from other countries, mostly Latin America and South America, but they don't necessarily speak English at home. So that's
right.
And we do after school academic support and at Red Hook and in Mill Road at Red Hook and Chancellor Livingston in Rhinebeck.
That's great. And you have volunteers who help do this.
Yeah. High school and Bard, high school students and Bard students.
High school students from Red Hook or Rhinebeck and Bard students come and help you do this. Mm-hmm. And had you done anything like this before you started with Culture Connect?
Not really like this. This is a whole nother, most of my background is in museum exhibit design and art education, but this kind of like blends a lot of it because I really enjoy including art and nature, outdoor education into the program to make it a little bit interesting and different, in addition to the homework help and academic help. So
right. So you studied arts education somewhere? Art education,
yeah.
Art education. And what does that look like to study that?
So, my background, that's not my actual. My background is design, exhibit design.
Okay. So for museums and galleries and whatever.
Yep. No, for mostly children's museums. Mostly,
sweet.
Like, interactive hands-on stuff.
All right, well, let's back up a little bit. How did you get into that?
So, I studied architecture and design in college, and I really liked, I didn't really want to do residential because I think it's kind of boring. And I really liked, museums and museum spaces, and especially for kids and children's design because it's so different than adult design. Everything is like knee level, everything is really just very specific to them. So my thesis was a daycare center. I had to do a daycare center for my college thesis, but then I'm like, this is kind of it's not very exciting. So I went into museum exhibit design because I thought that was kind of cool. And I really love museums. I've always gone to museums my whole life and spent a lot of time in all the New York City museums and all over, with my parents and my family. We'd go to museums a lot. So I was really liked the exhibits and the interactives. And I thought, I think I'd like to do this for a living.
How cool.
Yeah.
Now, go on.
So then I moved to Chicago randomly by myself.
From where?
From where was I living? From Syracuse. I graduated from Syracuse. I went from college.
Oh, cool.
To Chicago, random. Like I was 22 years old, didn't know what I was doing. I was like a waitress, and I sold earrings on the street, and like played maracas in the subway, and like did all this random stuff.
Did you have some history with maracas prior to your professional maracas gig?
Met a guy that was like a pan flute player, and he's like, "You want to be an accompaniment?"
Was it Zamfir? Was it Zamfir?
I don't even remember his name. He was from Chile. Anyway, so I put like rice in a bottle and was just like, the accompaniment, and that's how we made some money. Like so random.
And were you sort of dating this guy?
Not really.
Mostly professional.
Mostly professional. But anyway, so then I started volunteering.
Lentils in an old Coke bottle.
Lentils? No, it was rice. It was rice. But then I volunteered at a museum to get like my foot in the door, and I did an overnight, the overnight program, the night at the museum stuff.
I've heard tell of these things.
Yes. And then I got a job there. That's how you get a job, is you volunteer and then you get in, the back door that way.
Well, which museum did you volunteer at?
The Chicago Academy of Sciences in Chicago.
Okay.
And they were building a brand new building. So that was a really exciting project. And I became the exhibit designer there. and I designed a bunch of exhibits for the new building, for the brand new building.
So you became the designer, armed with the experience of being a maracas player.
Correct.
And,
No, but it was my
having a degree
design.
in architecture and design.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And, it was like a lot of trial by fire. I never had done anything like that before, but it was really fun. I did it for 5 years, so it was
amazing.
So that was fun. And then the exhibit opened. I mean, the whole museum opened. It was like a whole new, it was so cool. It was like hard hat wearing, like on construction site, doing all the design.
So you're advising as it's going up.
Yeah.
We're going to need this there. We need this there.
Yeah, worked with architects, worked with all the construction people. It was really fun.
Okay, have you ever had, apart from your current job, have you ever had a job that good?
That was a cool job. That was a cool job. But what the problem with those jobs is then it's done. And then you're like, what? Now what? So when the museum opened, it was like time to do something else. So my then boyfriend, now husband, Tim, we saved a bunch of money, and we knew we were going to, like, the job was going to end because the museum was going to open. So we just saved a bunch of money for like 3 years, and then we traveled. We just traveled all over the world for 2 years.
Really? Because you were in your 20s, and you could
we were
travel
20,
super cheap.
29, yeah.
And what kind of
super cheap
ticket? Did you get like a round the world ticket?
No. We went by overland. Overland.
You had a car?
No, buses.
Oh.
So started in Texas all the way down to Argentina, overland.
Where do you go overland from Argentina, except sort of?
No, and then
back
go,
up.
and then we flew from Argentina. We flew to Africa and did overland that way. But so like a couple planes. We had to fly over Panama,
South Africa.
South Africa, yeah,
So,
and then up the other, up to like Namibia. Like,
did you travel overland from south to north, the length of the continent?
the length of the continent. Yep, a year.
That's fucking amazing.
Yep.
A year to do that continent.
A year to do that part, and then.
Did you keep a journal or?
Yes, actually, at the time there was not really a whole lot of email, so you couldn't really do email. There was like a couple email internet cafes. So I kept, of course, written journals, and we did fly from Panama to Colombia because it was the Darien Gap. You couldn't really go overland, but it was like, and stopped along the way. My friend was studying howler monkeys in Nicaragua, so we stayed with her for like a month in Nicaragua studying howler monkeys. We did all this random stuff. We worked in Ecuador for a month or two. We lived in Ecuador for 2 months, like working at a hotel. We ran a hotel, random.
So you're picking up odd jobs
so
along the way.
So then we had to make money, right? We had to make money somehow, but it was like, at the time, it was like maybe I think $5 a day. That was our budget. Like $5 to $10 a day.
And that was doable.
That was doable at the time.
Staying in hostels.
We were staying in hostels.
People's houses or whatever.
Pretty much, yep. Hostels, camping. We camped in South America. But it was super cheap at the time. Now you can't really do that anymore.
And did you have any trouble along the way? Were you mugged or
No, not really.
Or?
We were pretty smart about staying in at night. And you had to have some street smarts. But some people were very, we saw what other people did when they were drunk and stuff. So we kind of avoided that kind of situation.
Other people did, such as?
Yeah, well.
You don't have to say.
Yeah.
So after you worked your way up to Africa
so we met two brothers. We met two African brothers, and they had a Land Rover, and we drove with them from South Africa through Namibia, Botswana, Malawi.
Did you go up Morocco or Egypt? Or?
No. We went through central Zimbabwe, Zambia, through the center, and then to Tanzania and Kenya. But we did go to Madagascar too.
Oh, wow.
That was one of the things.
So you had to take a boat or a plane to get there.
That was a plane from Tanzania, yeah. Mm-hmm. And a really cheap plane. And so that's why I love Madagascar. I love it. It's one of my favorite countries of the world.
Huh.
Random. I know. And then Culture Connect does this Madagascar thing. It was
that's so cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that was fun. The whole adventure was 2 years of our lives.
So where was the last place you went? It sounds like you didn't make it all the way to the top of Africa.
So no, we were actually going to go into Turkey and all that.
Yeah.
And continue into Asia and make it a longer trip. But when we were in Madagascar, it was 9/11.
Oof.
2001, right? 9/11, and it was kind of chaos. We were going to go to Egypt. That was our next stop, but it was time to go home at that time. It was time to go home. We were okay, we're done.
How did that news get to you?
We did not. we did not have any we didn't even know it happened because we were in the middle of nowhere in Madagascar.
Yeah.
And there was a Peace Corps guy that was on his bike, and he just heard us speaking English, and he was like, "Are you guys American?" We said, "Yeah." He's like, "Did you know what happened in New York?" And we were like, "No, he's totally
And
lying."
was this like on September 12th or 13th?
It was on
or?
September 12th.
Okay.
So we didn't know.
So it's pretty fast.
Yeah, it was the next day, but we were like, "What?" And they were like, there was like one TV in this weird bar that we went and saw like what was happening.
And
we
you
were like,
rushed
"What
to
the
that
F?"
TV.
Well, we couldn't really, we rushed to that TV to find out what was happening, but we couldn't leave. We were like on this island and we couldn't leave for a week. So we had no communication with our families, which was really weird because they lived on the East Coast and we were like so, worried. So for like a whole week, we had a transistor radio. We were trying to listen to it. We had no idea. We didn't see anything. We didn't know anything.
And then, flights like all over the world were just shut down.
Yeah, no, I know.
after
We were
that.
stuck there. We had to hang out in Madagascar for a while, for like a couple weeks. And then we flew to Canada because we couldn't fly to.
Oh, right. I remember that.
Yeah, we couldn't go to the States.
And then traveled overland back to where? Chicago or?
No, and then we stayed with our parents. Like we were visiting we hadn't seen our parents in 2 years. So they live in Westchester County. Tim's parents live in Westchester County. My parents live in New Jersey. So it was like
that's
handy. It was
convenient
handy.
enough.
Yeah. So we hung out with them for a while, and then
So how did you feel on September 12th when you heard this and went to the bar and saw it on TV, being so far away?
It was crazy because I didn't believe it was really happening. I think a lot of people here obviously had so much more media exposure. We didn't understand what was happening. But what was interesting? We were trying to explain this to people in Madagascar, like our village, is burning.
Right.
And it was like there's no way to explain people that have like straw huts as their home.
Right.
There are buildings that are taller than one or two stories, right? So they didn't quite understand what we were trying to say. We're like, a very tall building falls down and many people, like we were trying to in French, Malgache, like it was like, and they were like, "Oh, my aunt died last week. She was very sick." And it was so like, we're not the center of the world. So the United States is not the center of the world. It was so humbling. Obviously, it was a terrible tragedy and everything.
Madagascar is the center of the world for the people who live there.
Exactly.
It's not bad that this is the center for people who live here.
But they didn't know where New York was. They didn't know where the United States was. They didn't know anything beyond their village. So it was very humbling to think like, oh my gosh, the world is on fire.
So you said that drew you home. It was
time.
How was that tugging at you too?
It was just time. Our family was worried about us. It was like we had been gone for 2 years. We were kind of tired. It was like, it was time. It was time to go home. And, we were kind of running out of money at the time. So, and we were already, I was like 31 by then. It was time to like kind of,
What an amazing adventure to have had. So do you ever revisit your journals from that?
I do sometimes.
You do?
Very rarely. But I do, yeah, sometimes just for fun. I wrote a lot of emails, quote unquote emails, like just typed up a bunch of stuff and then would send it off, like kind of like just to our family and friends so they knew what we were doing. And it's kind of interesting. It was a different world, though. It was definitely much different than now, I think.
And I'm guessing right after, on September 12th, you also wanted to reach out and connect with some of your family.
Yes, and there was no way to do that.
How long did it?
It's like a week. It was a week. It was like a terrifying week of like, oh my God, what is happening there? We had 5 days. I think it was 5 days that we did. There was no phones. There was no way to communicate with anybody.
Just this TV in the bar, you were staying
the
for 18 hours a day now.
Crappy. No, it was like this little tiny,
Right. So you get back home to Westchester in northern New Jersey.
Yeah, for like a couple months, and then we decided to. Then I got a job. Then we got job applications for museums because Tim worked in museums too, and we moved to Philadelphia of all places, random,
the city
to work.
Of brotherly love, a nice place to go
Never
after
had
this horrible.
Really spent time there, and because I got a job at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia,
which is
the Franklin Institute Science Museum.
Okay.
To design the big giant heart exhibit that is now still there. It's like this huge heart, this 2-story heart that you like walk through and pretend like you're a blood molecule.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes.
So you're like, you leave through one of the ventricles and you come back through one of the auricles or whatever.
Something like, kind of like that.
Is that right?
It has like little steps. No, ventricles.
What? No?
No, not quite, but you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we went, and that was my job. I got hired to do that. So we lived there for 3 years, and that was a big project. That was a really big project. So Tim got a job at the Natural History Museum next door, at the and that's what we did in Philly.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
And did you look long? I mean, it's
we spent, resume upon resume. And then I loved that place when I was little. I remember going there when I was little to the Franklin Institute. And I was like, I'm never going to get this job. It's just like really.
What luck you got jobs side by side.
No, I was so excited. Yeah, that was really fun. So we stayed there for 3 years. Philly's like a tough town, but it's a great town.
How so? How is it a tough town?
It's just I don't know. It's very different than the Chicago or New York. I really liked it. Now in retrospect, I like it more. It was interesting. It was definitely like I don't know. It was an interesting place to live. A lot of tension. And we had a great stay there, I think. And we knew it was finite. We knew we're like, the exhibit is going to open 2004, and then we're done. Or whatever it opened. I think it opened 2005. And then we were like, okay, and then we're going to move. Like we knew we were going to leave.
And where did you think you wanted to go to?
So then we traveled again for another year.
You'd saved up some money.
Yeah, we saved
you had
some
the
money.
Bug.
We had the bug.
And where did you go back to Kenya?
Asia.
And then go
No, Asia this time.
And
we drove across. We drove from New York to California all the way across, like just stopping in. We had like 3 weddings that summer for some reason. We stopped for we spent 2 months just driving around the States and visiting family and crashing and camping and stuff. And then we flew out of San Francisco to Japan because Tim was born in Japan, and we wanted to see like his family friends there and like some older people that we saw where he grew up. I went to see where he grew up in Japan.
Which was where?
In Ichijoji and near Kyoto, like this cool little village in Japan, random. And we only stayed there for a week because it was super expensive. And then we went like immediately to all the cheap countries. Like we flew to Bangkok, and then we just did overland. Again, all overland until we had to
So like Vietnam, Cambodia.
Yeah. Yep. Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, all through China, all the way back to Laos. And then we flew to India, and then we flew.
Did you spend much time in India?
Yeah. About a month and a half. It was so much fun. It was amazing. It was one of the most amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
All right. And did the two of you do other traveling after that?
So that was about a year. After India, we flew to Spain, to Barcelona, to check it out because we wanted to live there.
Why?
Because my mom is Spanish and I have citizenship through her.
Oh.
And so we thought, and by that time we were already married, and I was like, it'd be fun to have like kids here because then they can have citizenship. So we moved there right after the Asia trip, and we had kids there, and we got jobs, and we stayed there for 8 years.
8 years. Amazing. So was Spanish spoken in your home by your mom when you were a kid?
Yes.
And did your dad speak Spanish?
Yeah, my dad was from Argentina. So yeah, my dad to this day does not speak English.
So I got to ask this. It's pretty much the kids who you're helping now are growing up in exactly the same situation.
Exactly.
Where Spanish is not the primary, English is not the primary language spoken at home.
I never thought about that.
Get out of here.
That is so true. I never actually thought about it like that. That's so true. Yes.
Yeah. And what a crazy thing that you would end up helping those kids who grew up in the same way you did.
Wow, what a cool way to look at it. I never thought. No, I'm serious. I never put 2 and 2 together. Because my grandmother never spoke English. We didn't speak English at home. Like I didn't speak English until I was in kindergarten. I learned English through Sesame Street. God bless Sesame Street.
Oh man. All right. So you moved to Spain. Where'd you move to in Spain?
Barcelona.
Okay. And now I got to ask because everybody's getting thirsty.
Yeah, we need a cocktail, dude.
Was there a special drink that they had in Barcelona?
In fact, it's funny you should mention, Norm.
Go figure.
Go figure. So this is all over Spain, but vermouth is like a sweet wine that has spices and stuff. But it's also like a thing to do, like to go vermouthing or whatever, however you say it. Vamos de vermouth is like a thing that you do, and it's a whole ritual on Sundays, which we kind of did pretty much a lot of Sundays. Before lunch was at like 2:00, in the afternoon, and it was this big long ritual. But before lunch, as if you're not hungry enough, you have to have vermouth with olives, anchovy stuffed olives, and potato chips.
Okay.
And a slice of orange and ice and olives.
Nice. You brought vermouth and olives
all
and
that
potato
stuff.
chips.
Brought all that stuff,
Well,
dude.
let's go.
Let's do it.
Hook us
Let's
up.
have our-
Now there's a little bit of water melting in the bottom of this ice. Should I sip that first?
Yeah, why
or-
not? Yeah, maybe you want to. I put ice a little prematurely. Here you go, everyone. Here you go.
Fabulous.
And
All right, now.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
There you go.
And you just drink
now,
it up.
The glasses are garnished with a wedge of orange and one of
Yeah.
these olives stuffed with tuna.
Correct.
Okay.
Couldn't find the anchovy ones, but you're supposed
Usually
to be
stuffed with
anchovy.
anchovies. And a pink flamingo swizzle
And
stick.
a pink flamingo, which is not very Spanish at all, but I just thought, ching ching, everybody. Thank you.
Chin chin.
Chin chin, I need a little drink right now.
All right, good. Well, we're a third of the way through. You've done great. It's flown by, of
awesome.
course.
Awesome. I'm going to have an olive. A delicious olive.
Yeah. And I'm going to have a potato chip. You said that's
you can
also
have that.
traditional.
I'm not going to do that because it's too loud to
I'm going to chew it right into the microphone.
Later. I'll have the chip later.
Yeah, that must be super loud.
Yeah, it's still loud.
All right, talk amongst yourselves.
So talking
while
about
I'm
so what
chewing
else
a
you want to know,
potato chip.
Norm? What else can I tell you?
I don't know.
So
I
we're
guess that's
vermouthing right now. So if we were
Say it in Spanish what we're doing.
I mean,
We said vamos a
vamos de
vermouth.
vermouth, vamos a tomar un vermouth, but it's like, and in Spain they speak Spanish and 4 other languages or 3 other languages, which I did not know when I moved to Barcelona how serious they are about it. In Barcelona is the capital of Catalunya. In Catalunya, they speak Catalan, which is a whole other language, is a completely different language. And I did not realize that you had to know Catalan pretty well in order to live there and interact with locals. So I learned Catalan. I took 3 years of Catalan.
Wow.
I know, because
And your mom was from Spain. Where in Spain?
Galicia, which is
So
like
did she speak
the
some
western
strange
part.
dialect
yes,
of Spanish?
they speak Gallego there. They speak another language
They
there.
speak what?
Gallego.
Gallego.
Yep.
So you probably speak some Gallego.
I do understand it. I don't speak it. My grandmother speaks it.
And your dad was from Argentina. So they both spoke kind of the same language.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. My mom and dad spoke the same language because in Galicia they speak Spanish. They're not like.
I
It
see.
is officially there's 2 languages
So they
in
spoke
that.
like Catalan and Galicia and Spanish.
Exactly.
And
they didn't
probably
speak
some other-
Catalan. They didn't speak Catalan because they weren't from
Well,
Barcelona.
I mean, respectively.
Right. But anyway, when I got there, it was like, wow, this is a whole nother world. I did not do my research well because I didn't realize how, like, they're very nationalistic. They're very into they call themselves a nation. Catalunya calls themselves a nation. And it is part of Spain, obviously. But anyway, so this is, I think this vermouth thing is, they do it all through Spain, but it was particularly, in Catalonia, in Barcelona, it was like a thing like that everybody did. So it was kind of cool. It
Well,
was like
it's
little
really
tradition.
delicious. And you said it's traditionally drank on Sundays at noon before the
lunch.
lunch.
Lunch is at 2. So the meals were hilarious there. We had to get used to that too. The meals were like, you have a cup of coffee in the morning with like a little pastry or something. Then you have the second breakfast, which is at 11, which was like a sandwich, like a ham sandwich or something. And then you have the vermouth on Sunday, right, with chips and olives. And then you have, it's like the whole day is like eating. Then from 2 to 4, I'm not joking, everything shuts down. Everything. The post office, everything closes in the middle of the day. They have this amazing, beautiful meal that's like a, hour dinner kind of meal. And then dinner was at like 10, and it was just tiny little tapas and things like that. It was not a big meal.
But you 2 Americans moved there.
Yeah.
Did you know families there who took you in and showed you sort of these?
No, because
No.
my family was from Galicia, so we knew no one in Barcelona. We just kind of moved there because I thought it was a cool city and it had a lot of like architecture and just amazing, beautiful. Like I just always wanted to see it, and I thought it would be a cool opportunity. But I didn't realize how like different culturally it was going to be than other parts of Spain. So that was cool. It was an interesting.
What a treat! But so everybody there spoke Spanish, but they kind of insisted that you spoke Catalan.
Oh yeah, and the older people didn't really speak Spanish. Like the old school, like grandmas and stuff. Like they didn't really speak Spanish that much.
And is that where all the Gaudi
Yes.
stuff is?
Yes,
Like
my favorite
Sagrada
architect of all time.
And
Love him.
How come? I mean, I've seen some of the stuff. I've never been there in person.
Gaudi is like, he was way ahead of his time. He was, 20s and early 1906, 10, 20s. He was super religious, which is interesting. And so
Christian of some
Christian,
sort.
yeah, Catholic. And but but his designs were amazing. They were all based on nature. Everything was nature based. So spirals and curls and curves and just this amazing like shapes that you would never see. Mosaic, a lot of crushed mosaic and stuff. And people wanted to knock it down. Like in the 30s and 40s, they were like 50s, 60s. They were like, this is, crap. And they wanted to knock it down. But then it was kind of like Olana, like they saved it. And now it's like thronged with tourists. But it was just, it's really ahead of it. It was really ahead of its time.
And did he have many other buildings around there?
Oh, yeah. Homes, really rich people. In fact, the guy that invented the lollipop, of all things, random, that guy became rich on the candy industry and had a plain looking house, but then he hired Gaudí to do the facade of it, and it looked like a dragon climbing up the side with like scales and
so they had THC in the lollipops.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. They're called Chupa Chups.
Chupa Chups.
And
I've seen Chupa Chups.
Chupa Chups, guess who did the logo for Chupa Chups?
Matty?
Nope. Dali, Salvador Dali.
Really?
Salvador Dali designed the logo for Chupa Chups.
And didn't the holder, the stem, have a little whistle thing?
Correct. And and so anyway, that's how that guy made his money. And he hired Gaudí to do his house, and then they had these beautiful chimney pots on the roof, and it was just like Gaudí was amazing. Gaudí was super amazing.
Huh. And how did it end for him? I mean, he was celebrated in his lifetime.
He died. He died. He got hit by a streetcar. Poor Gaudí. I know.
Hit by a streetcar.
He got hit by a streetcar. I know. He never saw his work finish. His opus work was the Sagrada Familia, which is still in construction today, if you can believe it. He never got to see the end to finish it. But the Sagrada Familia is one of my favorite buildings because now it's super touristy, but it has like snakes and turtles crawling up the side and like in stone, of course, stone. So very nature-based. Everything.
People kind of must have thought he was nuts to some degree.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Was he?
Without a doubt. I think he was a little nuts. He was a single man his whole life. So
not that there's anything wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So, he never got married, never had kids. But very odd guy. But he just put all his passion into his work. And it shows. So.
Yeah.
But Barcelona was really, it was a beautiful place to live. It was an amazing place to live. And, selfishly, one of the reasons I learned Catalan was because I wanted to do a master's there while I was there. And it was at the University of Barcelona, which was only in Catalan. So in order to take the classes, you had to do them in Catalan. So I learned Catalan, and then I did the classes, and my head was like pounding every day because I had to I couldn't
you weren't thinking in Catalan? You had to translate?
I couldn't really understand it, so I had to translate it into Spanish. And then it was so I did the master's, which was $53.22 for the whole master's. It was so cheap because it was a university, because it was a public university.
Oh.
So it was the master's was super cheap to do, and education is very reasonable there and very attainable. And so people can get an education that is in a way that's without a doubt not attainable here. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And you said you have 2 kids.
Yes.
They were born there.
They were born there, yeah.
So they can both go there and get that kind of education. Is it still that cheap?
Yeah. I mean, if Amaya decides to go to college there, which I would love, it would be free, or $100 maybe for the whole semester.
So wonderful. And do they have any desire to do that?
I mean, I don't know. They're kind of little. She's 13.
Oh, is she?
She's not quite ready yet.
She's amazing, by the way. I love your kid.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So Culture Connect does this thing every Veterans Day, this arts crawl, and I'm always there. And you are always there. And Amaya's always there. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen her through 3 or 4 of those. And she's always so engaged and has so many nice ideas and is happy to speak up and share her thoughts about the art. And it's just an ideal.
She loves art.
She's fabulous.
She loves art. She really does.
And does she make a lot of art?
Yeah, she does. She's in all the art clubs and after school art clubs and art classes, and she's very into art. She loves creating art. She loves painting and doing stained glass and writing.
And has she been to the Sagrada Familia?
Oh yeah. She was born there, and we came back when she was 5.
Okay.
So she didn't really speak English when she came back either. And Milo, you know Milo. I don't know if you know him, but my son, who was born there also, he was only 6 months old when we came back. So he doesn't remember it as much, but she remembers a lot of it. She remembers a lot of it. Yeah.
And who were some of her favorite artists?
I don't know. Actually. You'd have to ask her. I'm sure, I really don't know. Good question.
Who are some of your favorite artists?
I really, I do love Gaudí. I have a little bit of a special place in my heart, but,
and so architects for you are in the genre of artists.
I think so. Yeah, okay. I would say, yeah. I mean, there's so many artists. I don't want to. I honestly can't choose one. You're putting me on the spot here, but
yeah. I said some of your favorites.
I know, but I want to start to expose Amaya to some interesting that are not just Picasso and Matisse, which I do like, by the way, even though Picasso was a dick, and they even made a song about that. Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole. Do you know that song?
No, it sounds like King Missile or something.
We got to find that song.
Who is that by?
I don't know who it is, but this is a really funny song. But he was kind of a dick, and a lot of male artists at the time were kind of dicks, and so I feel like a lot of female artists didn't get their day, and they did all this cool stuff. Yeah. Right.
Well, they didn't, and they increasingly are getting a little bit more, chipping away at all of that. But let me ask this. I mean, Picasso was a famous misogynist.
Yes. Yes.
And should that affect how you think of his art?
No, because I do respect his stuff. I feel like he was born in Galicia too, which is kind of cool. He was born in where my mom is from, which not a lot of people know that. But and he did, he started very classically trained in oils and stuff like that, and did a lot of landscapes and things. And then, he started branching out. So I respect that. I respect that he branched out and started doing different stuff.
Separate from the man is the artist.
Yeah. I mean,
because some people were like, nope, writing him off. We'll never.
No, I'm not going to say that, because I think it's important in our history to know that, at that time it was a man's world kind of thing, and women had a hard time breaking free of that. And so now I just feel like I'm not going to not like it. I like Picasso stuff. I think it's interesting. I think he's interesting.
But, for example, 20, 30, a long time ago, I went to see a woman, I didn't need to say her name, who was a singer-songwriter in the city. And people are like, "Oh, why are you seeing her? She's horrible. She did this thing." And I'm like,
"But see, you can't do that."
And my thing has always been like, "I don't care. I'm not hanging out with her."
Right. Well, and in fact, Picasso did the painting. Obviously, I think it's a little cliche, but I will say that this was very. You said that what's one of your favorite paintings by him? Guernica. Have you ever heard of this? The gigantic painting about the bombing of Guernica in the Basque Country in Spain during the Civil War.
Right.
And it was very powerful because obviously it was very abstract. It's in grays and blacks and these very dark colors. I don't know if you know it. Do you know if you could picture it in your head? It's huge. It's like at least 12 feet long. And it was very impactful for me to see it in person because I took a group of kids. I was a tour guide in Spain for a couple of years, and I took a group of high school kids to see it. And
high school kids from Spain or France
they were
or
American.
the US?
They were American. They were rich American kids, but they were really, really interested in all this stuff. And I stood in front of that, and of course, I studied it a lot. So there was a mother with a crying baby, and all these dead bodies flying, and limbs, and horses, and it's very powerful if you know the backstory, because it was a real village that got bombed.
Right.
And so I started talking to them about it, and they were sitting there in front of this thing, bawling, crying. Men, boys and girls, and everybody, because I kind of painted this picture about it and told them what exactly, and it showed them a picture of Guernica bombed, like a photograph of an aerial photograph of the town bombed, and it was very, very powerful, and it was a protest painting, and I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that was really cool.
Okay. So let me ask about that as a piece of political art, as a piece of protest art. The bombing had happened.
Yeah.
He spent
He did it in a couple weeks.
Really?
He did it really quickly. He did, not a couple, I don't know how long, but he didn't do it. It took very little time to do.
So how do you think that is? How effective do you think that is as a piece of protest art?
I think
protest art it has a goal.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. And I think, it's been obviously exhibited, and it was in the Prado. It was in the basement of the Prado. for a while. Then now it's in the Reina Sofia in Madrid. So, it's in a permanent location. But I think it's traveled to one of the one of the expos, one of the world expos to explain what was happening during the Civil War and Franco and Franco was basically like Trump. Like, he was like a huge, like an asshole that suppressed his people and like starved his people. And, everybody, suffered under Franco, I think, at the time. And so I think that was a really important piece of art to explain like just how much suffering, all the innocent people that died. And
do you think that, but by the time that painting was done and viewed all over the world, everybody already knew what was happening. They knew about the bombing there. They'd seen the newspapers.
Yeah, but not really, because remember, nobody had really TVs or anything. This was like a way to, it's like a documentation, right? Of like, look at the suffering, look at the faces of this mom with her baby. Like, it was very like, I think more powerful than a photo or than there wasn't really newsreels or anything like that. It was very hard to get documentation about it. So I thought that was kind of cool. But just watching the kids, 80 years later, however many years later, these teenagers, right, in 2011, whenever I did that, crying like boys that were like cool guys, like crying in front of this painting was very powerful to me. That I could teach them, like, look at this. Check this out. What is this about, right? Or really look at it. It looks like a bunch of crap, but look
amazing.
At it. Yeah. So that was super powerful.
So you're helping them to relate to this on an emotional level.
Yep.
Which artists are traditionally very good at, like conveying the emotions, and reporters are good at conveying the facts, but hopefully, apart from Fox News, without much sort of hyperbole or...
Right.
Huh. Wow. So what other pieces of political art do you like?
Well, I mean, the Gorilla Girls are awesome, right? The Gorilla Girls.
We saw them.
I know, they're so
Vassar.
awesome. I love them. They're They're so kick ass.
Yeah.
Right? So I like that. I like that little girls can see that and say, like the reclining Rubens with the gorilla face on it. I think that's just really cool. Like, the only women in the museum are what is their slogan?
It's like 94% of women represented in art in the museum are in the paintings or painted by men.
Right.
Yeah, because women aren't exposed. They aren't sort of included in those exhibitions.
Exactly. So I like that. And I think Amaya, went to see that actually when we went on the trip with Norm on the Veterans Day Arts Crawl, a little plug for that.
Yeah.
We went to Vassar, and it just happened to be on display. And I thought it was kind of cool for those little girls to see that. And
And do you make art yourself?
Not really. I teach art, though. I teach art. I mean, I do little things here and there, watercolors, but I'm not really. I wouldn't consider myself an artist per se. I just dabble. But I teach art to kids mostly, and I really love that because there's so much you could do with it. I work at Olana also, and that's my job. Is I'm an art educator at Olana, and I really love that. I love watching kids.
So this is your other job.
That's my other job. Yeah. That's my other job. Yeah. So I really enjoy that job because it's like, and the whole process about it, not just the final painting, the final work. I think a lot of people focus on, I can't draw, I'm not an artist.
Right.
But I think that, the process is more important really than the art itself, than the finished piece.
And you mentioned Olana. You said like Gaudi's magnum opus that Olana was almost torn down.
Yes.
And Olana.
Olana was a house. I mean, it was Frederick Church's. Frederick Church is a Hudson River School painter of landscape art, and the late 1800s, and he built this house in order to have the views so that he could paint from his house. But he's also rich, so he had the money to do that. But if you've ever been there, it's kind of like Castle on the Hill kind of thing. It's very beautiful. I mean, he traveled all over the world.
Pretty sure we were there together.
Oh my gosh, duh, of course, right? So Olana is for me. It's kind of cool because I like that he traveled all over the world too. I kind of respect that about him at the time, that he was able to travel and collect all these artifacts from all over the world, and his home became this like kind of relic of a place to house all these objects and all these things. And in the 60s, I think they were like, this is a piece of crap. Let's knock it down and bulldoze it. And then, Jacqueline Kennedy actually was one of the people that fought for its survival.
Wow.
Yeah. And
amazing place.
So cool. And I'm so glad it got saved.
And like Gowdy, sort of, eccentric exterior with all these different influences.
Yep.
So how did you get involved there? I mean, I guess as an architecture major and an art lover,
randomly, Amaya and Mila went to camp there, this really cool art camp. And I was talking to the camp person, and they're like, oh, maybe you can whatever. Do you have there's a job opening. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah. And so that's how it started. I just got connected through that. And I designed a bunch of the curriculum there, and now I just do like art classes there. Seasonal though. It's like seasonal. Spring and fall.
What a blast.
Yeah, it's fun. Tomorrow. I have one actually next week. Yeah.
And what happens in the art classes?
We talk about, it depends on the classes. There's 4 different classes to choose from, or 5. One of them is land art. One of them is landscape painting. There's a bunch of different classes, and depends on what it is. The one I'm doing next week is land art. So we take the kids around the landscape of Olana, and we collect stuff, and then they make a piece of land art with natural materials.
What a blast.
Yeah, it's cool.
And do you start them off by showing them examples of other land artists?
Yes, like Andy Goldsworthy and a lot of environmental artists. I try to tell them that, this is ephemeral art. This is not like a piece of art that you frame on the wall and keep forever. This is like ephemeral. It's going to go back to the earth, but it's really beautiful.
Any of the kids know what ephemeral means?
Well, I have to explain that, of course, but it doesn't last forever. That's what you one of those things. Like,
what an amazing thing! And do you collect that? Is that up on the website? It should be.
Oh yeah. There's
the
pictures.
Art that the kids make.
I think they put a little gallery up there. I'm up there. I'm on the website.
You are?
Showing the kids around. But yeah.
That's great. How often do you get to do that?
So it's pretty seasonal. It's like when, spring and fall, when the teachers take field trips. I actually had Rhinebeck 7th graders all went there last week. So I had 85, Rhinebeck 7th graders over there. It was fun. And I knew all of them because not all of them. I knew a lot of them because, I taught art classes at Chancellor too. So I knew them when they were really little, and they were like, oh my God, I remember you. And you were,
I didn't know you taught art classes at Chancellor.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't it was a after school program, but it was art around the world. It was around art around the world.
That sounds amazing.
I know, it was fun. And
so that's artists from a bunch of different countries?
No, it wasn't artists. It's the art. It's like art
styles
from around the world. So like in India,
it
would be like a 6-week course. We would do block printing and those miniature paintings from Rajasthan and things like that. Like art inspired from around the world. So
it sounds amazing.
I know, and which I'm going to do for the summer program for Culture Connect this summer.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
Yeah,
with the Community Connect kids.
Yep, same curriculum.
All right, and so how many different places will you cover?
Well, I had 14 different 14.
It's not going to be 14 weeks long, though, is it?
That was a 4-year thing. That was because it was over 4 years. But I'm just going to choose. I think I'm going to do India, like Japan. I'm not sure. I have to decide still which ones.
So how often will that meet?
That's going to meet Tuesdays and Thursdays in July. But for the Community Connect kids, yeah.
So it's like 8 weeks total.
Yeah, 8 weeks total.
Or 8 classes total.
8 sessions, yeah.
Huh. So you do India, and who else? I definitely want to enroll.
Oh, you want to know? Well, of course I do Spain. Oh, what?
I said I want to enroll.
Oh, you want to enroll? Okay, cool. I'll put you on the list.
Great. Spain. So India, Spain.
I'm not sure. I have to decide which ones I'm going to do. But there's this cool art from all over. I mean, it's hard to choose really. But yeah. Yeah.
And where will that happen?
That's going to be in Red Hook at the St. Christopher's old school, the St. Christopher School.
I've been there.
We're renting that from them, and
again.
Yeah, again. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was there a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
with when you were doing a class.
Yes, and we did that whole giant puppets and all that.
So gorgeous, so amazing.
Yeah, we did these huge puppets, like 4-person puppets. That was kind of fun. That was really fun.
So it seems like you've got kind of the best job in the world.
I love
doing that.
I really do love that job.
Stuff.
I love that job.
It's just spectacular. I remember that, how nicely everything was painted and put together. and thinking just how spectacular you were at doing that.
Thanks, Norm.
All right, back to artists. I told you I was going to ask this question. Art that's changed the way you see the world around
Why,
you.
I told you the Guernica.
What artist?
I mean, Guernica.
Really?
That was going to be my answer for that.
Oh.
I mean, I think that Guernica, taking the kids to see that was pretty cool.
So how did that painting change the way you see the world around you?
You know, I think that art can be a messenger of it could be a message. It could be like a vehicle to explain things that aren't that is harder to explain by text or by another medium. So
Right.
I feel like it can be attainable to every age and to every, like, it depends on how you explain it. Of course, it depends on the background you give them. But if you explain a piece of art enough, I think that it speaks for itself, right? Like what we did.
That's hilarious.
Right? Don't you think?
If you explain it enough, it speaks for itself.
It like doesn't speak for itself. It's easier to understand. It's easier. The message gets through clearer, I think. I mean, you give students like an opportunity to figure out what they think it is, and then when you explain it, then they see it a different way. Do you know what I mean? I think
it's hard.
It's richer.
It's hard for students to look at art.
Right.
I mean, I think at a certain point you're taught that, or somehow, that you're hopelessly just clueless to say, well, what's it about?
Right. Exactly.
Oh, what's the modern and contemporary modern art anyway? Like, oh, what's it about? It's like, well, you're just dumb if you ask that.
But it doesn't have to be about anything. It could just be. That's just it. Like,
and that's the advanced class.
Exactly. It could just be.
But you don't get through sort of this first class, and I don't know. I think lots of people find it hard to just enjoy art with their own individual relationship.
Right. And I think especially for kids, it's like, oh, they want to be cool in front of their friends. If they go to a field trip to a museum, they feel like, oh, well, I don't know what my friend's going to think, so I have to see what they think first. But I think if you give them opportunity to make their own opinions, and then you explain it on top of it, it just gives it that much more richness.
So why is it that kids get to that place where they have to be cool when looking at art, especially?
I don't know, because I think that they're afraid of what people are going to think of them. Like if they say they like it and their friend says, "Oh, I don't like it," well, then that's just your opinion.
I don't get it.
Right, or
it's
I don't
dumb.
get it, or why do you have to get it? Just let it be what it is, And when it comes to creating art, I think for kids, like so many people say, I can't do this, I can't draw, I'm a bad artist, I suck, whatever. And I say, no, you're not. Like you could draw a line on a piece of paper and that's it. And that's art right there. Art could be anything. So
or
I feel like
string from the ceiling to the floor.
Exactly. Or anything. I mean, really. So I really wanted to break down those barriers of like, being self-conscious and give them the confidence to just be like, put a dot on a piece of paper and that's it.
And you must see that work with many of your kids.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you give them the confidence and you say, you don't have to praise them all the time. You don't have to say, that's so beautiful. You have to say, you know what? Good for you. That's what you decided to do. That's your art. That's you're an artist, and just like that other person that did this amazing watercolor of a landscape or whatever.
And so, who are some of the artists who you show to your kids? Apart from, you mentioned Andy Goldsworthy, I'm guessing Guernica still gets shared with kids.
Yeah, I mean, I did that because that was in the context. That was in context. But I really like to show because I teach a lot about world cultures of art. Artists that are not known, like styles of art, like miniatures, the Rajasthan miniatures in India were painted they were very tiny, but nobody knew any of those artists. They were just a lot of that before TV, before electricity, before any of this was a way to document something, right? The way people dressed or the way people did things in their daily life.
And I happen to know lots of those miniatures were super explicit.
Yes, the Kama Sutra. Those weren't the miniatures. Those were not miniatures. Those were like Khajuraho. Those were like, there's a temple called Khajuraho in
I know.
You know it, right?
Yeah.
So that's stone. That was carved in stone, right? And that was a way to, there's another way to, explain certain things that were not necessarily on with pen and ink, or that's a different art form. But I feel like that doesn't get enough, like everybody studies all the classics and everything, but you don't really talk about the unknowns, like the folk artists that really gave a lot to the world that don't get a lot of airtime. So I want to expose them to that,
And so most of the kids you're teaching now with Culture Connect, Spanish is the language spoken at home, and many of them are from Mexico. Do you incorporate any of that kind of art
yeah.
sort of by design into your curriculum?
Yeah. In fact, I think we do have I have a Central American, like, Mexico, Central American, like, unit. And Mexican art is so amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's just so brilliant and colorful and beautiful that I feel like they should know. A lot of it's embroidery, a lot of it is wooden carvings, and it's not just paintings, right? It's not just Diego Rivera. Everybody's like, oh, Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo, like,
right.
Which is great. I love them, but it's not they're not the only Mexican artists. And there's artists that are anonymous that carve these amazing animals and paint them with toothpicks, and they're artists as well, right? Like.
Yeah. And so I'm just wondering about their homes and if they have art in their homes from sort of their ancestral homeland.
I don't know. That's a good question.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So nice
that would be awesome.
to live with that.
Yeah.
And when you grew up, was there art in your house?
Not per se. My parents were not really into art per se, but they did take us to museums all the time. And I really think that shaped who I was in my, like we lived close to New York City, so we went to the Metropolitan and we went to lots of places in New York City that, Smithsonian. We drove to, Washington, D.C. once and hung out in all the Smithsonian. And I just thought that was so cool, right? Like, there's just so, like, I loved museums since I was little. And I really thank my my parents for, exposing me to that. But they didn't really know about art. They just thought it was cool to take us to places. And I just, I really am grateful for that, I think.
Really? So they weren't especially into art, but they took you to a lot of museums?
Yeah, no, they weren't really into art. They weren't really artistic. They just thought it would be, like, Sundays were sacred, like, not in a religious way. So Sundays were like, let's go on a road trip. Let's go to see something that we've never seen before, which really shaped, I think, the way I grew up and the way, like, when I went to college, I was really into, the outdoor stuff, like doing nature stuff. And, which I didn't get a chance to do when I was a teenager. So I really wanted to explore that because it's just seeing something new every day, right? It's just seeing something new that you've never seen before.
So good. It's just such a treat. So what art do you have in your home?
A lot of the stuff from our travels. I have, like, Gujarati, like, embroidery. I have, like, wooden carved animals from Mexico. I have, like, stuff like these embroidered beaded purses from China that I just have, like, a lot of molas. I love molas.
All right. What's a mola?
Molas are Panamanian textiles that they would wear on their clothing. The Panamanian the Kuna people of Panama wear them as part of their clothing.
Okay.
Like on this part of their chest.
Uh-huh.
And they teach their daughters to do it when they're really young. But they sell them now. Of course, they sell them to tourists. And I have, like, at least 20 molas framed in my house because they're really beautiful.
And how big are they?
They're all sizes, but they're, like, about this big, but they're all embroidered. They're like they're textiles, but I really love them.
Wow, I want to see those.
Yeah. I'll give you one. I think I have like thousands of them.
Well,
let me see if I can give you. Let me see if I can find you a mola.
Because you bought thousands.
They were $1.
Of them over the years.
They were like so cheap there. I almost felt bad giving them that little bit of money for that beautiful piece of art, but they're really cheap. So I bought I think I have like 25 molas in my house.
Wow.
Yeah. They're like a piece of art. To them, it's a textile. To them, it's clothing. But for us, it's a piece of art.
And what art that you have in your home have your kids commented on?
I mean, they really like that kind of stuff because a lot of it is animal. A lot of it is nature based. Like, we're very much into nature. We spend a lot of time hiking and going outdoors, and so a lot of that, it's not classic art. It's like nature based. There's a lot of animals and plants and organic stuff from all over the world. So that's really the kind of stuff that we have in our house.
That's nice. And kids art, I'm guessing, hung here and there.
Yes. Oh my gosh, a lot. Because Milo, my son, loves to paint draw a little animal. He's just really into like snakes and frogs and amphibians, and that's a lot of the stuff he drew. So I have a lot of that stuff on my walls too.
And so you're pretty active educating the kids on stuff? Like, snakes and amphibians, that's like this.
Oh yeah, without
it's like
a
Mexican
doubt.
folk art or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. They're kind of like sick of it. They're like, here we go again. And I'm like, I'm a museum snob because of my background. I'm a snob about like exhibit design.
Snob.
I really am. I have to be honest.
Design.
You don't want to go with me to a museum because I'm like, the font size is too small and this just doesn't. So they make fun of me with that.
And what museums that you go to consistently have wonderful displays?
Well, I mean, the New York City museums are amazing, right? Like the Met and all those places. But I think a lot of like children's museums now. That's a little bit of a, I really like children's museums because they're not.
There's one in Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And two in New York City, I think.
Oh yeah, there's
At least.
children's museums all over the country, but I just really like beyond the design. It's just much more interactive experience. It's a hands-on experience,
Right.
But but for me, the design is really important. Even for kids, they have to kind of be surrounded by beauty, and so I feel like
And have you been to the one? I'm just thinking. Sorry, in San Francisco, the Exploratorium, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
I've never
That's
been
a
there.
Classic.
I've seen.
In fact, for my job, I had to do a lot of spy trips, to like take
Spy
pictures
trips.
and copy things.
And
Everybody's
steal
like
ideas
copying
from other
ideas,
museums.
right. So, but again, like nature, like I wanted to expose the kids to hiking and like doing other stuff in nature, and that's what a lot of the stuff we did, and that's what I did in college.
Yeah.
Which is why I got
Well, so I got a hunch I know the answer to this. Your dream job?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I really like designing and education, and I really like actually what I'm doing right now. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it seems
It's a
pretty ideal for
combination
you.
of- Yeah. So, but anything that can get me outside, I really, again, like I keep going back to that. Like it's all like kind of art and nature are really very much, I don't know, like caves, for example, the
caves.
stalactites, right? The stalactites and stalagmites, and
Stalactites and stalagmites, yeah.
stalactites and
Now,
stalagmites.
and here we go. We only get a couple of minutes left. I wanted to bring this up at the beginning of the interview.
I know, and I stopped you.
Because I said in the thing, you're a spelunker, which in addition to being just a great word,
Not really a spelunker, but I wouldn't call myself
once
that.
upon a time, you went in a cave, and what happened?
It got filled with water because a dam broke up the street.
What kind of
river.
dam?
Beaver Dam.
Yeah.
Yep. You wanted me to say that, didn't you? Beaver
Well,
Dam.
it's an interesting part of the story.
Beaver Dam broke and filled the cave. The cave was like the height of it was only a foot and a half high, so we were on our stomachs.
The cave entrance.
Cave entrance. We had to like
And so you
literally
shimmied in
dive
there.
into a hole in the ground, and it was like this high, like a foot, maybe 2 feet. 2 feet. So the whole time was on your stomach until it opened up into a bigger space. But most of the time was on your stomach, like on the ground of the cave.
I'm
I know.
claustrophobic already.
I know. It's so.
So you were like 20 or something.
I was
and you guys
19, 20. Yeah.
all thought, hey, this will be fun. Let's
Yeah.
shimmy into this tiny hole in the
Correct,
ground
because I really liked that because
on the banks of this stream.
Yep.
Yeah,
No, it wasn't banks. It was really pretty far in. It was a mile in. We were a mile in.
from the stream.
Mile in from the entrance.
Okay.
A mile in.
Okay.
So we had to, thank God we happened to be in a higher part. We just happened to be in a higher ground.
So you're in there, and then what happened?
The dam broke, and we didn't know the dam broke. It just started filling up with water, like Indiana Jones, and we were like, and it just stopped at our neckline.
No way.
Yep.
So you're in a cavern where you can stand up?
No, we were
Almost.
literally on our stomachs.
Oh, still.
Yeah.
But you said it opened out into larger.
But we weren't in that part yet.
Okay.
So when that happened, little did we know that somebody had seen our car and saw the dam broke and had started pouring cement and brought cement trucks to stop the flow of the water. Cement trucks. So if they hadn't come at that moment with the cement trucks,
It would have continued
gotten
to
all the way
fill
up
up.
to the ceiling.
So somebody said, "Oh, they must be in that."
They saw
in
our
that
car,
cave.
they traced the license plate, and they called our friends.
Oh my God!
And they said, "Oh my God, the 5 of them went to do this trip."
Now you're inside the cave on the stomach, and the water's filling up to your head,
And we were like this. Ugh.
like this, your nose
I'm
against the
laughing.
ceiling.
I'm laughing because it was December, so it was freezing. The water was literally 32 degrees.
Oh my God!
It was freezing.
And what happened next?
And then we stayed there for 14 hours, and until the water started receding, because it had to just flow out.
But you had no
We had no idea
no
that there were trucks out there.
way
We had no idea.
to believe that it was going to start flowing out.
No. So we had to take a chance. We started hallucinating because it was so cold that we started like hearing dogs barking and like started hallucinating. So we're like, we have to get out. So we swam out we swam out and we found the entrance
Through that tiny hole.
And we came out and we thought it was like probably 4 o'clock in the morning or something at the time. We came out, it was bright. It was like everything was bright. We're like, that's weird. And it turned out they were like helicopters, ambulances, CNN, NBC, ABC, all the news networks waiting for us, thought we were dead. We came out on our own, but they were going to come rescue us, but the scuba tanks didn't fit in the in the hole.
tiny.
So they thought we were dead. So they literally thought we had drowned. But when we came out, they're like, they're alive. like it was almost funny. But anyway, so then they took us to hospital. It was a hospital in Albany. Actually, it was up here. It was in Albany, and they took us to the hospital.
What was the name of the cave or the river?
Aneskethal Cave, which is now closed to the public, by the way.
Smart.
Correct. So that was my 15 minutes of fame. There you go.
Wow.
Fun.
And have you been in a cave since then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
You're
not.
learning your lesson.
It definitely scares me a little to hear running water in a cave because it's like a little traumatizing.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm definitely a little. I could get claustrophobic, but I definitely it's worth it to see the amazing structures inside the cave. Like caves are amazing.
Right.
Really, like you can't really believe it that's for real. It's like crystals and formations and that have formed over thousands of years. It's just really, it's worth it. It was to me, it's worth it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy that you got out of that cave alive.
Me too.
And
Me too. I think it formed my spasness of my life. Like life is too short. Like you could die at any moment. So it's like you may as well live life every second that you have it. Like just alive.
Well, thanks for coming and living some life here tonight. We're out of time.
Well, that was fun.
It flew by as I knew it would. And thank you so much to my guest, Laura Selicaro. Thanks to the Epicurean and Matty and Patricia and everybody. Everybody have a fabulous Friday and a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks, Norm. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Bye.
That was fun.